Now, Dr. Cavoukian, I want to ask you about potential mission creep for this data. Right now, the Public Health Agency is saying they want it, but should we be concerned that other parts of government might want access to this data? I can imagine law enforcement in particular would love access to data like this. And we also don't know how many other examples of, unbeknownst to us, agencies might have been tracking our data over the last few years within the government. It might not be limited to public health agency.
That's right, Christine. And I would be concerned of within the government, other departments within the government wanting to gain access to this information. And, it's an easy sell. They go to Public Health Agency of Canada and say, look, we're with law enforcement or whatever group, and we would benefit enormously. Let us take a look at this data. So the concerns are real. And often that kind of third-party external authorization is lacking, and third parties may be able to gain access to this. It's not clear, but suffice it to say, people are going to want access to this data beyond the initial purpose for which it was collected.
Now, the new proposal is for monitoring continuing to go forward. And I've read that it's potentially up to 5 years of monitoring. And my understanding is this is related to the pandemic. Is it that the government believes the pandemic is going to continue for up to 5 more years? Or, is there something else going on here?
Who knows? But I should tell you, yesterday, that got voted down in the standing committee. I testified before the standing committee on this issue. And I heard afterwards, when there was a vote on it, it was voted the continued monitoring that Public Health Agency was doing has not been approved any longer. So my understanding is they will no longer be able to do this.
But the potential for up to 2023 remains. Is that correct? That has not changed.
Christine, let's check on that, because I don't believe that will continue.
Okay.
I believe it was shut down, but let's definitely do a double check on that.
Okay, yeah. So Mr. Brassard, who's the MP who sits on the ethics committee, I think addressed some of those questions in the first segment. But I want to turn to you about other countries that do this kind of thing. What do you see internationally about monitoring like this? I know Canada is certainly not the worst offender of surveillance states, but if we go down that road, what could that look like?
We shouldn't be doing this. And if you look at Europe, for example, they passed an extremely strong privacy law in 2018 called the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR. And it basically would shut down any ability to do this. And they included my privacy by design framework in the GDPR, in this new law, which strengthens it even more. So I think it's highly unlikely you would see this kind of activity in Europe or other jurisdictions. There's so much opposition to it.
This has not been the only, I'm sure this will not be the only surveillance we're going to have found throughout this pandemic. Pandemic's a great opportunity for governments to seize new powers. Do you think we're going to, when this pandemic's over, be living in a world with more surveillance, at least here in Canada?
Surveillance is mounting. It's steadily mounting on a daily basis. There's no question. And the pandemic just makes it worse, because whenever there are emergencies like the pandemic or 9/11, emergency measures can be invoked that basically say privacy laws, we put them on hold. This is an emergency, we have to collect additional information. But the problem is, after the emergency is ended, rarely is it the case that those new emergency measures are ended. So 9/11, that continued for years. So my fear is with this pandemic, and it will be coming to an end, hopefully sooner than later, but there will be an end to it. We have to insist upon these emergency measures, full stop. We have to put an end to them.